These theater crowds in 1973 were lining up to witness a fictionalized version of a nightmare. While The Exorcist became a cultural landmark for horror, the actual 1949 incident in Maryland contains details that surpass the Hollywood script in sheer brutality. The terror took root in a setting that defined mid-century normalcy, a quiet, suburban street in Mount Rainier. This was the home of a 14-year-old boy known as Robbie, whose life until 1949 had been unremarkable and grounded in a Maryland suburb. Robbie lived in a house filled with extended family, but he remained a deeply isolated child. He spent his time grappling with the absence of his parents, a loneliness that left him searching for connection to the family he lost. This case suggests that the most extreme accounts of the supernatural often begin in the most mundane settings, centered on a child looking for a way out of his isolation. Robbie found a mentor and confidant in his Aunt Harriet. As a professor specializing in dark studies, Harriet viewed the spirit world with academic curiosity, a perspective she shared openly with her nephew. Shortly before her sudden death, Harriet left Robbie a specific parting gift, a Ouija board. Driven to speak with Harriet, Robbie turned to the Ouija board daily. Soon, his focus shifted from grief to a dark obsession. His family noticed a sharp decline. The once quiet teenager became hostile, prone to sudden outbursts of rage. By treating the board as a gateway for his grief, Robbie unwittingly created a spiritual opening. He invited an interaction with the unknown, unaware that he lacked the means to end the connection he had initiated. The disturbances began as small, localized sounds. The family reported rhythmic scratching coming from deep within the walls of Robbie's bedroom, as if something were trying to claw its way into the living space. The environment in the house grew increasingly hostile. The scratching sounds evolved into the audible sound of a woman weeping in empty rooms, followed by bursts of jarring, disembodied laughter that seemed to move through the hallways. The haunting then moved from the air to the flesh. Deep, unexplained scratches began to manifest across Robbie's torso, appearing as if invisible talons were dragging across his skin. These physical marks indicated a shift in the entity's power. It was no longer merely haunting a house, it was asserting physical dominance over the boy himself. The situation broke during an evening when Robbie was home alone, once again using the board to attempt a final contact with Aunt Harriet. The house erupted into violent poltergeist activity. Lights flickered at impossible speeds, and shadows appeared to spin across the ceiling. Most distinct was the sound of doors slamming in a precise 3-knock pattern, repeating through the house. In poltergeist theology, a sequence of 3 knocks is an intentional mockery. It is a traditional demonic signal designed to mimic and insult the Holy Trinity. Robbie fled to Harriet's room, where he encountered a visual manifestation, an entity mimicking his aunt's form, but with white eyes and decaying flesh. Behind it stood a dark, red-eyed figure that seemed to paralyze the boy where he stood. His family returned to find a scene of total degradation. Robbie was in the corner of the room, his voice transformed into a deep, guttural roar as he consumed the raw remains of a dead cat. The mimicry of Aunt Harriet was gone. The boy's autonomy had been completely overridden by a violent external force. Standard psychiatric and medical evaluations yielded no answers for Robbie's violent outbursts or his physical deterioration. With science unable to explain the boy's condition, the family turned to 2 Catholic priests as a final resort. Robbie reacted to the clergy with immediate physical aggression. He mocked religious iconography and recoiled in apparent pain when touched by holy water, his skin reacting as if he had been burned. During the ritual, the furniture in the room began to slide on its own, and Robbie's bed lifted entirely off the ground. Simultaneously, a bloody X began to carve itself into his chest. In Latin, the letter X represents the number 10. This mark changed the priest's understanding of the ritual. They realized they were not facing a single presence, but a collective of 10 distinct entities. On the final night of the exorcism, the priests found Robbie clinging to the ceiling. From his elevated position, he began shouting in fluent Latin, a language he had never studied, using a voice that shook the floorboards of the room. The climax of the struggle was physical and visceral. The ritual concluded only after Robbie vomited a thick black fluid and fell into a profound, coma-like sleep. When he woke the following morning, the possession had ended. Robbie was physically frail, but mentally clear, possessing no memory of the violence or the months of torment he had endured. Robbie left the house with his innocence seemingly restored by amnesia. The tragedy of the 1949 case remains with the adults who witnessed it. Left to reconcile their lives with the evidence of a horror the boy was allowed to forget.